Every time we go to a funeral, it is an opportunity for us to do what I call a reality check. Because within a few years, or a few tens of years, it'll be our funeral that will come around, regardless of how healthy we might be at this point in time. And in 100 years from now, all of us here will be long dead and buried, and we will be largely forgotten about. And the saints of old had a beautiful Latin phrase to sum up how we should keep our eyes, as it were, on the big picture, what the big picture is. It was tempus fugit, memento mori. Time flies, remember death. And all of this should prompt us to think about what the big picture of our life is, what the meaning of our existence is. Who am I? What am I about? Where have I come from? Where am I going? And how do I get there? And if we are to live a meaningful life, it's essential that we engage with those fundamental questions. Now, the old catechism that Paddy and Mary, and indeed myself and all of this generation were privileged to learn in school, addressed this head on. The first question of the old catechism was, who made me? And the answer was, God made me. And that's a very important starting point. If we get that right, we're off to a great start. If we get it wrong, we're off to a bad start. And the reason why I say that to you is that the modern world that we live in, the world that we take in through the media, television, newspapers, magazines, Facebook, etc., that world that we live in presumes that we didn't come from God, that we're a big accident of evolution in a random universe. So basically, we have come from nowhere and we're going nowhere. But as Christians, we believe that we have our origin in the fatherhood of God, just like all of us here have our natural dads as our beginning. And not only have we come from God, we are made in God's image and likeness, again, like many of us are made in the image and likeness of our dads. I think that Michael and Patrick were more like their grandfather, wasn't it, Joe Murphy, rather than Paddy. But anyway, yeah, we are in the image of our dads. And in terms of putting that into the God angle of things, we have a vastly better intelligence than any other creature in the world, but we also have a soul that survives death and continues into another existence after we leave this world as regards our mortal bodies. So that is something of what we celebrate as Christians. We have God as our Father. And our Heavenly Father is so much more bigger and perfect and loving than even our natural dad. You probably know that Paddy and Joe and the other members of the family lost their dad when Paddy was 10 years of age, and he and Josie were thrown in at the deep end and had to basically fill the shoes of their dad and look after the farm, etc. Paddy picked up a very good work ethic because of that, and as I was driving to the nursing home with Joe on Thursday to see Paddy, Joe remarked that, in the summers of old, they'd be down in the field at 3 o'clock in the morning mowing hay with the tractor so that Paddy could get off at his right time to start working in Shannon. So our dads will eventually leave us, but our Heavenly Father is eternal, and he'll be there at the beginning of our life and at the end of our life as well to look after us. The second question of the old catechism that's worth remembering is, why did God make me? And the answer was to know him, to love him, and serve him in this life and be happy with them forever in heaven. All dads provide homes for their children, and God has provided a home for all of us in our home in heaven. That was the beautiful gospel that we had. Jesus speaking in the Last Supper, telling his disciples that he was going to die the following day, Good Friday, and by doing that, he was going to prepare a place for us in heaven. Now, when I got the text from Michael about Paddy having died rather, I suppose, for me, a bit unexpectedly, there was a whole flood of memories that came into my head. Beginning with childhood. Every summer, one of the big treats of the year was coming on holidays to Grandma. And my mother would take us 3 children to Tarbert on the bus. We'd come across on the ferry, and then Paddy would meet us in the Anglia, the Ford Anglia, and he would bring us up to Grandma's house. Paddy, I think, had more faith in me than my dad, because he had me driving the tractor at the age of 10. And I can remember actually the first day I was driving, Paddy was showing me how to work the gearbox. And this was a Ferguson 20. And third and reverse were very close together on the gearbox. And Paddy, maybe a little bit foolishly, was standing in front of the big wheel of the tractor. And I thought I had it in reverse. It was actually in third. And when I let go on the clutch, the tractor kind of jumped forward. Paddy jumped out of the way, thankfully. Otherwise, I would have been up for tractor homicide, and Paddy's funeral would have been 53 years earlier than it actually was. So I was very glad that he jumped out of the way on that occasion. Then, the years afterwards, when I was in college, when I was in seminary, I would come up very often to visit Grandma, Joe and Margaret, and I would always spend the last night with Paddy and Mary. That was a kind of a standard part of my trip. My latest memory was seeing Paddy, bless him, on Thursday, and the timing was perfect. I was able to give him the last rites. But the memory that I really want to talk about and hopefully get you to remember is the second last time that I met Paddy, which was in the nursing home sometime the autumn of last year. Paddy didn't really remember me, but at the end of our little meeting, and we had made some small talk, I says, Paddy, we will now say a decade of the rosary. And Paddy's face lit up, okay? And I led the rosary, and Paddy perfectly remembered all of the prayers. He remembered the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be, and he even remembered the Hail Holy Queen, which is a prayer that we only say once in the recitation of the rosary. And I'd like to put before you that there is a very important lesson in that, and it's this. If we are faithful to going to Mass every Sunday and every holy day, if we repeat the Last Supper in memory of Jesus, his last will and testament, do this in memory of me, we will remember the big picture of our life, that we have come from God and that we are returning to God. Jesus really wants us to come to Mass every Sunday, do this in memory of me, so that we will remember him as the center of our lives. If, on the other hand, we are not faithful to coming to Mass on Sundays and holy days, if we don't repeat the Last Supper in memory of Jesus, if we become lapsed Catholics, then we get religious dementia. We forget the big picture, we forget where we've come from, where we're going, and all we can do is to live for this passing world. Now, another one of our great Catholic memory prayers, of course, is the Rosary, when we meditate on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And again, when I would visit Paddy and Mary through the years, and we would watch the 9 o'clock news, next thing we did after the weather was all the three of us, we would pray the Rosary, and that is a very special memory for me. You've all heard the saying that a family that prays together stays together. And I think that Mary and Paddy's 54 years of marriage is a testament to the power that prayer brings into family life. So to sum up, I want to use the words of my dear grandmother, Paddy's mother, whom we affectionately called Mrs. Breen. Whenever she would pray for the dead, she would say, "The bed of heaven to their soul," or to his soul. Today we can pray this same aspiration for Paddy, the bed of heaven to his soul, and we can do it with confidence, given his commitment to Jesus, to Catholic living, and especially his attendance at Mass on Sundays and holy days and the daily family rosary.